Mic check, everybody. Mic check, testing. If you would be so kind, you can go ahead and type in your question or chat box to let us know you can hear us okay. We're going to give just a couple more minutes for everyone to get on the call, but we will be starting shortly. Welcome, folks. Patrick Prunty here, and thanks for joining another Marshall Reddick session. This time as we dive into multi-family investing right here in Southern California, in and around our home base office of Newport Beach, California. Ton of value in this session, and I'm super excited to be with you as always. As I said, my name is Patrick Prunty. I'm the Director of Private Lending here at Marshall Reddick. I'll be speaking a little bit more as we move through the topics tonight, specifically when we get into the financing aspect, which can be very, very key, moving above 4 units when conforming financing is no longer an option. But I do want to introduce you right away to our host tonight, Tom Ahola.
Hey guys, it's great to be here. Thank you for that introduction, Pat. As Pat was mentioning, this is definitely a passion of mine. I love multifamily, especially here in the Southern California area. You know, one of these buildings can be your retirement for life. So I'm looking forward and I'm excited to get to work with each and every one of you tonight. And yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure to be with you. I hear you in the office on the regular, always on the phone, looking for that next deal for that owner who really, really wants that. Little house cleaning, folks, as we get started. Marshall Reddick as a whole, as we have a lot of new folks on the call, we, in a number of capacities, make it possible for all to safely and simply invest in residential real estate in carefully selected areas of the United States. And we do this by providing education, such as this session, along with investments and investment opportunities. But the key is the in-house professional real estate services that we provide, specifically our brokerage, which Tom is a part of, also our in-house property management. We're the professionals. We understand how to navigate that space, right, which is key, and it's the X factor to your investment being successful. But we also have that in-house private financing division. In addition to those things, we also provide access to the other specific and necessary resources that one needs to be successful in real estate investing, such as contractors, lawyers, insurance agents, and CPAs. We do function in a number of different markets, right? And everyone's familiar with the fact that we've got not only our corporate office or our home base office here in California, but we also have offices around the country, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, etc. But specifically tonight, as we've mentioned, we're going to be focusing in on home base right here, Orange County and Southern Los Angeles County. Some of the topics we're going to be going through tonight will be multifamily and why value add. Tom is a bird dog for those types of deals, and I can't wait for y'all to hear what he has in store. Going over the cap rate. It's a simple calculation. A lot of folks are unfamiliar with it and how it's used. Buyer and seller representation and how to find these coveted properties, most times happening off market. We'll be discussing property management, how Marshall Reddick does things, what our costs and fees are, and how we can be beneficial to you, whether you're looking to acquire one of these value add properties, or perhaps you already have one that needs assistance that can be brought up to market value by increasing the rents. Financing, of course. And we're also going to be having a case study, which is actually a specific deal that Tom helped a client with recently. So, Tom, let's get into it. Why multifamily and why value add?
Well, that's the $1 or $2 million question for this presentation, right? First and foremost, we're going to start with the absolute basics, the economies of scale. What does that mean? That means you're getting 4 doors per 1 loan. You're getting 4 doors per 1 transaction. You're getting 4 doors per 1 roof, 4 doors per 1 plumbing system, right? You're getting to spread that liability over multiple doors for 1 parcel number, okay? You're also spreading your vacancy as well. So the economies of scale, meaning that you're less liability, because if you have 1 vacancy, you're only 25% vacant versus a single family where you're 100% vacant, right? Next is rents are only going up. This is a little painful when we were a little bit younger in California and rents were sky high. They're even sky high now, right? And we're seeing this with our property management teams. Landlords are bumping up the rents $100, $200, $300 per their unit sometimes with the rental increases here in Orange County and LA County. Now, also, a lot of these investments aren't meant for the 12 months, but for the 10 years. Think about your rental increase in that time frame, right?
You know, I think that's something that I'm out of touch with also. I mean, I just can't believe how high rents have risen these days. And I think that that's why some opportunities exist. I think that a lot of landlords, I take my parents, for example, they have a triplex in Santa Monica, and you know, they've had tenants in there for years. It's just easy for them. They own it free and clear. And by that capacity, they could certainly increase the value by increasing those rents. So I agree. I don't think rents are going anywhere. And so I think from a specific of getting in from value add, you can definitely see an increased cash flow over time without a shadow of a doubt. Rents are going nowhere but up.
Perfect. I have to wholeheartedly agree on that. Some of these buildings, you're getting a couple $100,000+ per unit increase. Now, the next step is less competition. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't any competition, but it's just not like competing in the single family market right now where anything that's a flip or a value add is getting 20, 30 all cash offers, right? You're swimming in a smaller pond of people who are competing for these properties. Now, that is because the purchase price is a little bit higher, but there's also a barrier to entry that is education, as well as having a team, right? So usually you're going to have your management team, you're going to have your contractors, you're going to have your realtor who's going to be looking at the price and increasing the leases and everything like that. What we're offering is all of those skills in one package. So that's giving you that barrier to entry into this less competitive market. And also, these opportunities do exist. As Pat was mentioning, like his parents owning that triplex in Santa Monica, that is kind of like the average owner of these buildings, right? I like to look at the chain of title of some of these sometimes. Bob Smith Sr. owned the property, bought it in 1972, passed it down to Bob Smith Jr. in 2002. And he never managed to, or it had interest in, raising the rents, building value in the property. And over the past 10, 15 years, it's become nothing but a nuisance to him, but he just doesn't know that yet because, again, it's free and clear. So what we're doing is we're finding these opportunities, we're digging these deals up, and we're offering Mr. Bob Smith Jr. different opportunities like the investment fund or different places where he can move his money that doesn't have the liability or the stress of managing 6 units, right? Where we're going to take that over, we're going to create these opportunities, and you are going to see the equity build accordingly.
Yeah, I think another common issue or thing, and the reason we're seeing opportunities start to exist is an aging population, right? And sometimes there's a death in the family, and maybe the kids inherit the property and they're not sure what to do with it, or they don't live closely, and it just gets unloaded. You just have to be Johnny on the spot, and you have to be prepared. I know we're going to be talking about a little bit later on about how you have to just have the need for speed and be ready to pounce on these opportunities when they surface. What about the equity gain and the sweat equity? How does that work, Tom? Is that why value add is so important?
That is 100% why value add is so important, because not only is the property distressed to begin with, so you get the low purchase price, but as you said, sweat equity. Marshall Reddick sweats, you gain the equity. So with that is like renovating the units, putting in new LVT floors, countertops, updating the units, not drastically, but just enough to where you can get that top of market rent. And with that, not only do you have a more valuable asset by the renovation, but by increasing the net operating income, you're also increasing the value of the property that way as well. So that's a topic we're going to get into with cap rate and future valuation and net operating income, but there's more than one way to raise your equity in these properties, and that's what we're going over today.
Yeah, totally. And I think that first year, right, of a value add acquisition, that one sort of stings a little bit. You got to be prepared for that. But you're buying into that property that needs the work, right, to build that equity, to raise those rents, which you're going to learn is ultimately going to raise that value and bring you that equity gain.
Yes, sir. All right. Acquisition prices for these 3 to 8 units. Now, a lot of these properties that we're talking about, either specific or not so specific examples, are in Orange County, in Los Angeles County. Orange County, the price to play is usually $1.25 million to $2.5 million, and that's for a 3 to 6 unit building, maybe an 8 unit building if you can really finagle in there under the $2.5 million purchase price. Right?
These would be value add numbers, is that right?
Value add. You're not going to see any of these properties that are performing at top market value sell for anything under that price. I mean, you are, those properties, number one, don't ever trade hands because investors don't let go of them. But yes, these are all value add. And Los Angeles County as well, a little bit lower on the purchase price because you get some of the cities that are a little bit older, but you're looking at $950 to $2 million purchase price for these value add properties.
Yeah, I think it's, we're casting it across county-wide, and that's going to be definitely different if you're talking coastal Newport Beach or Santa Monica versus, a little bit more inland like Santa Ana in Orange County, or maybe Inglewood, Hawthorne, something like that in Los Angeles County.
Exactly, precisely. All right, now here is the bread and butter. This is the way in which we're going to be communicating these properties tonight. Now, this isn't the only way to communicate properties. You've also got cash on cash, ROI, but just to make sure we don't get too far off into the weeds about communicating these deals tonight, we're mainly going to be talking in capitalization rate. Okay, the way that you use capitalization rate is very simple: net operating income over current market value of the property. Now, for the future valuation examples as well, we're going to use the current purchase price of the property, which is the same as current market value. Okay. That being said, what cap rates to expect in each of these counties? Orange County, you're going to be looking at a 1.5 to 3.5 cap rate stabilized. And again, as Pat mentioned before, that can vary drastically between Newport Beach, where you're going to be sitting at a 1.5% cap rate because you're going to be getting high income, but your purchase price is higher, so it takes that percentage down. Or you can be looking in Anaheim or Santa Ana, where your purchase price is going to be lower versus your net operating income, right? And that's going to be closer to the 3.5 or the 4% cap rate, okay?
And I think it's important to sort of set people's expectations correctly, right? As you get new to multifamily investing and, you have this idea that like a 6 to 10 cap is available. And in Southern California, that's just not the case. Maybe in other tertiary markets around the country, those numbers are possible. But in those other markets, you're not getting the appreciation that you will in California, which is why I think that folks are willing to own these properties at these cap rates, is because you're going to be getting that long-term value gain over time as they go up in value.
And not just that, the stability of owning in these markets as well. There's always going to be people who want to live in Huntington Beach. There's always going to be people who want to live in Costa Mesa. There's always going to be people who want to live in these communities in Southern California. So you're always going to have something that's nice and stable, right? LA County, let me just finish this up, is usually a 3 cap to 5 cap for purchased properties.
These would be stabilized cap rates after the value add.
Exactly. So cap rate. Now, using cap rate, you can also do a future valuation of the property. Again, I'm going to try and keep us from getting too far off the weeds and keep it pretty straightforward. But what you would do is you take the desired cap of what things are selling for in this market. And I'll give you a more specific example later on, like the Torrance property, where the desired cap rate that properties are trading hands for are around 4%. That could be 3 3/4 or 4 1/4, but usually right around a 4% is what you're going to be selling a stabilized property at, right? And again, you're going to get that just the same equation, but reversed. You're going to take the net operating income divided by the desired cap rate to get your value, right?
That's the value that you're willing to pay, right? So you can sort of compare that with what the ask price is if it's off market, or what the list price is if it's listed, right? To kind of understand and set your expectation correctly, you can use that cap rate to help you understand value. I'm not sure though, Tom, you'd know better. Does value pencil out to a seller's desired sales price, or how does that usually work?
It usually does, right? If you see anything that's listed at a 4 cap in the Southern California market right now, it gets eaten up, especially if it's performing, especially if the numbers look good, if they've got the rents raised to market rent, you've got professional management, the building looks pretty, there's not things falling off the roof. If it's at a 4 cap, people are going to gobble those up.
I guess then the $1 million question is, how do you calculate annual net operating income?
Well, that's a great question, Pat. Let me show you. Right, so here is a specific example, and we kept the numbers basic just for sake of the equation, because I know for sure you're not going to find a 2-bedroom and 1/2 bath anywhere in our markets for $1,000 a month. So
yeah, just simple, easy numbers to understand.
Simple, easy numbers, but still very specific example, right? So if we look over here to the right at our rent roll, just to keep it simple, we have 3 units, 2 2-bedrooms, 2 baths, and 1 2-bedroom, 1 bath, going for $1,000, $1,900 for a grand total gross scheduled income of $2,950 a month. Okay. Now, if you move over to the left-hand side of our chart here, you multiply that $2,950 times 12, which will be your annual gross income for the property. When calculating your net operating income, you're essentially taking away all of your expenses that you would factor into owning income property. First and foremost, vacancy factor. So with that, we're looking at vacancy factor of about 8%, which is $2,832, taking our gross effective income to $32,568. Okay. Then we're looking at our operating expenses. So these are going to be for sure expenses you will see, like taxes, insurance, water and sewer, all these other expenses that are things that have to be paid for the property annually. Then you subtract all of that, and that includes your miscellaneous overhead, maintenance, and management fees, for a net operating income of $20,275 a year. Okay. Now, if you look at your net operating income and a 6% cap rate, whichever market this is operating in, that's what properties trade hands at, is a 6%. You can get a future valuation of $337,917. That was a lot of numbers. So let's boil it down a little bit for you here.
Yeah, keeping it super simple, right? Just so you can understand how that you can estimate your value.
Right. So again, here's the math equation on this. You're looking at net operating income, which is $2,275 divided by a 6% cap rate equals $337,917,000. Now, future valuation through cap rate is how all commercial real estate is sold, and it still applies to these smaller multifamily properties as well. So it's very common. This is a true way to value a property. Seems a little bit easy because it is.
Thanks, Tom. I really appreciate that, running through the numbers.
Right. Now, I also had mentioned earlier that there's other ways to measure property. We're not going to get too far in the weeds. We can go over these numbers more in depth through a consultation. I can explain these to you, but like I said, we're mainly using cap rate for tonight. First is cash on cash. That's cash flow divided by cash invested. So you're looking for cash right now. Also, annual ROI. This is the one that we like to use the most here at Marshall Reddick, because we're looking at 10, 15, 20-year holds. So you're taking your total profit divided by your total investment capital divided by years held. Okay.
And I think in the total profit, how we run things is obviously we're factoring in some appreciation there at a very conservative level. We're also deducting for selling expenses, right? So that ROI number that you'll always find on our website, on our calculator, is going to be spot on based on the 40 years of longevity and in business that Marshall Reddick has. So these are true numbers, and just a few other metrics there that folks use in addition to cap rate in this 3 to 8 unit multifamily space. As far as a few other metrics that are important, right? When we get into our calculator and understanding about our pro formas, variable expenses are very important. Okay, because they're kind of those expenses that aren't real expenses unless you have vacancy, maintenance, or tenant turnovers, which anyone who is a landlord knows that those things do happen. They're definitely real things. It's just when you're fully occupied, you don't experience any vacancy factor, right? When you're fully occupied, generally your tenants are paying rent and you know, your maintenance costs are lower. But at tenant turns, you're going to have that vacancy, which definitely happens. And tenant turns are regular in multifamily. Same with maintenance, right? You're going to have to put in new flooring, new carpet, paint, those types of things. And then you'll have a leasing fee. So you just need to understand what those variable expenses are and factor in them accordingly. We use a number of different factors. We have a whole methodology. It's called the Reddick property rating, and we're not going to get into that. Most of the folks that are at this level and diving into multifamily, they've been to sort of our more basic presentations. And so if you are unclear about how we do that or want to learn more about our methodology, you need to schedule that one-on-one, right? Especially here, if you're local, please come into the office, right? We'd love to have you. You can meet the teams. Those are important things. But we are always showing you metrics of income before those variable expenses, and then what we call cash flow, true cash flow after factoring in for those variable expenses.
All right, very, very important. That's one of the greatest things we love to do here is be always conservative, under promise and over deliver, right? So we want to make sure all of our investors know the true numbers and not the speculative ones. All right, buyer or seller representation. Now, this is the most important part because this is the first step. Like Pat said, we'd love to have you come in. We'd love to sit down and have a consultation. This is not a smaller investment to be purchasing. This is something that we need to get to know a little bit more about what it is you're looking for. Well, first and foremost, though, is buyer and seller agency agreements. The paperwork is extremely important because what that means is you have our undivided attention now. We are your agents. We are working for you. We are hustling for you. We are looking for these deals, and you are going to be the first ones to be presented with them.
And if you're really serious about getting into this space, it can definitely happen. As you mentioned, the opportunities exist, but you need someone like Tom in your court every single day, eating, breathing, sleeping this, providing you with these deals, crunching the numbers, running the numbers.
Exactly, exactly. So as Pat said, again, a one-on-one consultation. Come on in. I'd love to make you a cup of coffee or buy you a cup of coffee. You know, we love when clients come in here. We love talking real estate just as much as you love making money with it. So come on in, meet the property management, the private lending teams, the whole crew who's going to be assisting you in turning these properties into high net operating income properties. All right. Again, the need for speed is extremely important. The case study that we're doing today of this Torrance property was actually on market. Most of these deals are off market, but sometimes they're on. And the only reason why we got our offer accepted is because I was barking down the listing agent's throat with a cash offer in hand saying, we want this property. We want to close today. Here's our offer price. Don't even talk to anybody else. Take it down now. And he did. So the bird dogging definitely is a crucial part to getting deals accepted in this market environment.
Yeah, I mean, just the market in general is out of control in terms of competition. So again, if the opportunities exist, but they're for those folks who are prepared, they're ready to roll. It doesn't always have to be a cash buyer. That certainly helps, but it's getting to the seller, getting to the agents involved quickly, right? Offering a low or no contingency offer and just being prepared to close as quickly as possible.
And also having the powerhouse team and name behind Marshall Reddick, because I can assuredly say this will be the easiest escrow you have ever had. And it's true because we follow it up. So agents love working with us, and also sellers as well when we drum up these off-market properties.
Yeah, and I love the term bird dog. I'm glad you used that, Tom. And I know that's what you're doing on a regular basis, in and out of properties, walking them constantly. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Oh yeah, I mean, this whole process of bird dogging, it's what I wake up and I do. I literally roll over out of bed, brush my teeth, check the market, and see where things are at. If there's anything of interest, I stop by it on my way to work, because driving from Huntington Harbor to Newport Beach, there's a lot of in-betweens, and I'll see sometimes 5 or 6 of these properties a week that I'm walking. Okay. Not only that, I crunch the numbers on every single one of these properties that look like they're a deal. If it goes far enough, I meet the listing agent, or sometimes I'll meet the owner of somebody who's selling it. When it comes to actually writing an offer, there's negotiations, right? There's opening escrow, there's attending the inspections, negotiating repairs, project management of overseeing, making sure expenses aren't getting too high, leasing out the property, appraisal of the property once it's fully stabilized. And I guess the thing that's probably most understated and what's very important is continuing managing and raising the net operating income over the years to come. So there is a whole process in this. There's a lot of work we do here behind the scenes. It's not just we're, oh, hey, that looks interesting, and sending it off to you. We crunch the numbers, we look at things, and you're only being presented with things that we say, hey, this is a deal.
Yeah, that's why they got to just meet with you. You've got to understand what their criteria is, what it looks like, cash buyer, finance buyer, what the unit makeup is, what kind of purchase price, what kind of cap rate, all these different things, so that you can go headhunt that specific deal for the client. That's the type of customer service I know that you provide, and that's behind the Marshall Reddick name.
And it's not just the temporary customer service. I'm planning on being here a long time. I know you've been at Marshall Reddick for many, many years, but we want to be your agent and your company that you work for your real estate investing needs now, or even in the far distant future when you choose to sell this property and we 1031 exchange you into a 20-unit building. We're going to be here. We want to work for you.
All right, so let's get into your methodology a little bit more about how you find these, right? Because I'm always wondering where you dig these deals up.
Yeah. Well, that's very important. It's kind of been my personality ever since I was a kid. I talk to a lot of people, right? I reach out to a lot of people. I network with a lot of people. I'm in a lot of different groups, a lot of different environments where I'm meeting these people, talking about their buildings, talking about their assets, helping them better manage their properties, or helping them sell their properties if they choose to. But it's not just that. Over the past 60 days, I've spent well over $4,000 on marketing materials, direct mail, marketing campaigns, reaching out to these people. It's all targeted, and like we were talking about earlier, it's bird dog, and I'm like pointing these directed, targeted marketing campaigns to reach these owners and to drum up these off-market properties. I can say honestly, right now, I have 20 units as pocket deals that I'm working through. Some sellers are moving out of state and they want to sell in about a month or 2 months. Some sellers are looking to retire and moving somewhere else, but these are all these off-market deals of people who, if the right buyer comes by, they'll purchase. And that is what is happening. Networking referrals, previous clients as well, deals that I've worked with clients who they love the way we do our job and they want to work with us again. Sometimes it's even clients who we renovate their properties and then turn around and sell them 12 or 24 months later because they've built so much equity and they want to move up. So
we're getting a really good question from the crowd, and I think you have something in store for us. So the question is, do you have any deals now? Can we go over them now?
You're getting a little excited. We do have any deals. Yes, we do. And there's actually one that's the surprise that we were supposed to be patient and wait for in the very end. But we are going to be going over a pocket listing 6-unit building I have in Huntington Harbor. So yes, but we're going to go through a couple more slides first, or otherwise we're going to get a little jumbled up in our presentation here. So
great. Awesome. All right. Well, property management, as I mentioned, is the X factor, right? And we here at Marshall Reddick pride ourselves on taking care of your asset just as well or better than you would. And we can do it better than you would as an individual owner because we have the time and we have the resources. So I've got our flyer on the screen here where you can obviously get an introduction to what our fee structure looks like. But you can also get an understanding about, this isn't our first rodeo. Okay, I mean, nationwide, we're more than 2,000 units. And here specifically in Orange County and Los Angeles County, you can see the spatial map and the geographic footprint that we have in the area. So these deals that you're finding, this is like right in the wheelhouse. So we definitely have the ability to help you do this, and you should let us do this. From my opinion, it's extremely cheap. It might not be the cheapest in the market, but you also get what you pay for. So I feel like we've hit that nice, easy medium between price and customer service. And you need to understand how important property management is to keeping your properties at market rents, dealing with tenants' maintenance and vacancy, keeping your property in good operating order, and keeping the value at what the current market value should be.
An example that I like to say that I think is pretty interesting and fun is our landlords will regularly get raises as well. You know, when's the last time you got a $10,000 raise at work? Sometimes we get these multi-unit properties under our management that have been self-managed or managed by other companies who aren't really paying attention to them. And when we're bumping up these rents, we get a vacancy, we're increasing the market rent of a unit $200, $300, $400, sometimes more. And with that, you know, multiply that by 3 units times 12 months, that's a lot of money. And that's not something that we expect these landlords to keep up on, because we do full rental market analysis, looking at the rental market situation, right? It's very, very hot right now. Sometimes we push an extra $50 or $100 a unit, and we get it because we know we're regularly leasing, we're regularly operating these markets. We come in, clock in, real estate for 12 hours, go home. So it's our job.
Yeah, this is a cool example, Tom. This is a recent acquisition of our Marshall Reddick client right here in our backyard.
This is a 4-unit building in Costa Mesa. Through our Marshall Reddick team, we helped one of our clients purchase this property. They're in the process right now of raising the rents over time. It was a pretty stabilized property to begin with, but this is the exact situation we're talking about. The NOI, we're cutting costs, raising rents, and doing it more effectively, right? We're also going to be upgrading units as tenants move out, and that's also a big one because we have project managers. We have specific staff on our property management team who go into these properties. They get bids from contractors. They make sure you're paying a fair price and getting your unit up to a very quality standard. And that's like having a contractor in your back pocket. So it's another value add thing we have here. Here's another one as well, a 5-unit building in Santa Monica, 132 and 4 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. What's great is, 3 out of the 5 units have turned over, which has managed, and we have managed a $200,000 plus upgrade to this property, resulting in a big rental increase, right? Now, Santa Monica is under a very strict rent control, much stricter than California, California statewide rent control. So this is very difficult to do in a market like Santa Monica because your vacancy is your opportunity to really push that rental increase, to push that NOI increase, to give more equity to your properties.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that this one is a feather in our cap, right? Because we've been able to navigate and understand all those nuances and work with the parties, even if it's lawyers or things of that nature, to assist the client. And so you need to work with someone who has the resources and the knowledge like we do to be able to navigate these intricate markets, right? And we certainly look at those, and I know Tom does, and he's well aware of them. And so if you're worried a little bit about some of those more stricter jurisdictions or geographic locations, we can stay out of those. But if you weren't working with someone knowledgeable like that, you might end up buying in an area that's got stricter than the standard California rent control laws and be, not in an expectation set correctly situation.
You better believe that. That's one of the things we talked about earlier about how we have the resources and how we have these professionals in these industries. I personally have talked to a lawyer who does specifically, landlord rights in the state of California. I called the California Association Realtors lawyer legal hotline multiple times for different transactions. We stay up to date on these things because it is important to know where you're buying these properties, what exactly you can do, so you're not sitting there holding the bag, and the next thing you know, you can't raise your rents because you bought something in the heart of Santa Monica and somebody's paying $600 a month for a $3,000 unit and you can't do anything. So yeah.
Oh, we've got one more example, and this one also comes out of Los Angeles.
Great example. This is an 8-unit building. Great unit composition here. 4 of the 8 units have turned over as well in this unit, and again, a big improvement to the property with over $100,000 in upgrades. It's a really great looking building now. Again, raised in huge rental increases. This is another opportunity where it's also in a part of LA where they have a little bit more specific rent control laws, but even, despite that, we've been able to navigate this opportunity and get the building performing to the great net operating income it's at. So.
Yeah, with the property management, we want to specifically state that earlier when I showed the matrix or the flyer, those are applicable to all around the country, right? There are some changes, some nuances between the markets, but we've really standardized our property management fees. And so you can expect to see that because a lot of folks that work with us here locally also own property in Texas or in Tennessee and in Florida, right? They're working with a single management company and a single fee structure, right? So they do apply, but some of the things we've built in to protect people in those markets are we have like a minimum leasing fee, a maximum leasing fee, a minimum monthly management fee, a maximum monthly management fee, which help you in different areas, right? In lower rent markets, that minimum applies, and then in some of your higher marketplaces, I mean, we've got properties in Newport Beach that rent for $10,000-$20,000 a month, and so obviously there's going to be a max leasing and a max monthly management fee in those situations. But all of the specific details can be found on the website at marshallreddick.com/management. And again, if you want to come into the office, any one of our well-trained property management staff would be happy to meet with you after you get together with Tom.
And I think probably the biggest thing to really accentuate, and this is going to be the last note on property management, is how many real estate investment companies do you know are managing people's assets? Usually it's a mom and pop shop, and you may save a percentage on the management fee, but you lose 10% on the the valuation of the property in 5 to 10 years because you're not having somebody who every vacancy is scrutinizing, doing a rental market analysis, and really making that building perform the way it should be.
Yeah, 100%. So, we're the professionals. The takeaway here is that we've got the time and the resources. Let us help you take care of your asset and handle the heavy lifting.
Perfect.
All right, I am going to speak just a little bit about financing. On the left-hand side of the screen, you've got just a quick snippet from our website, and I'll get into that. These are our private financing rental programs. We have a number of different programs, but when it comes to financing, okay, if you can get a conforming loan, right, a conventional loan, if you will, you need to do so using a conventional lender. And those that work with Marshall Reddick over the long haul, you understand that we work with Reed Hazard. So we're talking about 4 units or less. So duplex, so if we're talking multifamily, duplex, triplex, or fourplex, right, you can still get that conforming Fannie Mae type loan. After the 4 units, it gets a lot more dicey, and there is no Fannie Mae product out there. It's all commercial-based paper, and that's one of the reasons that Marshall Reddick does have an in-house financing program. Diving into that, all the resources are always available on the website, right? So you can get eyes on the various programs we offer in addition to the rental programs that I was just showing, and I'm going to show some more details about those. But visit the website here at marshallreddick.com/loan-programs to get eyes on those in real time. The rates and terms change very seldomly. And again, these are tied to no indice or anything that the Fed is doing. It's just purely based on what the market will bear from the lender's perspective and from the borrower's perspective. We try to find that happy medium. One of the biggest takeaways from our financing, our in-house private financing, is that it's truly asset-based. right? We're not concerned with what your credit score is. We're not concerned with debt to income ratio. We're not concerned with employment. I mean, how many times have you worked with a client that's retired, but that's got millions of dollars in the bank, right? And they just can't get a bank loan, or they can't get financing when the lender is looking to assess the specifics of the borrower, as opposed to how we look at things, which is truly at the asset. Okay, I mean, and this is not that this is a subprime program. It is not, right? It's just people with this kind of money. It's like they're putting these kinds of dollars down and into these properties. There's just no risk from the lender's perspective. And as private investors, as private lenders making these loans, we're able to do that, whereas the conventional conforming guys can't. They have to stick to the Fannie Mae guidelines because they want to sell that paper to Fannie Mae after the fact. So they're under handcuffs. We truly have like literally no guidelines. We can make any loan that we want, and we make great loans and better loans for those assets that we really like, especially those right here in our backyard in OC and LA. I'm a prime example of this, right? I have a complicated file, right? I have great FICO, great income, you know, all these different things, but it's tough for me to get a bank loan or even a non-conforming commercial loan if they're looking at what other things I have necessarily. So this asset-based financing is key for complicated, key for clients with a complicated file. We're very reasonable on the fees. We offer a straightforward pricing, right? There's not going to be junk fees that are involved there. We're not going to tease you in with a low origination fee. And when it comes to interest rates, I mean, we're very spoiled these days, seeing interest rates in the 2s to the 3s and maybe even to the 4s. But historically, those rates are ultra low. So yeah, definitely from a private standpoint, you're going to pay a point or two higher on the interest rate. But from a historical standpoint, these are extremely awesome rates. Everything we do is fixed, right? And we also have amortizations of up to 30 years, which is uncommon in the commercial or in the multifamily space. Tom, as he mentioned, right, you got to have the need for speed. You got to be able to close these deals quickly. And so from a financing perspective, if you're not a cash buyer, you can make your offer as attractive as a cash buyer if you're working with in-house Marshall Reddick private financing, right? Quick closings, we can do it much faster than a conforming lender can. And we're even willing to waive the appraisal that would always be required if we're looking at low LTVs of 50% or under. Right, so that allows you to, instead of buying one for cash, buy two, leverage at 50%. Mm-hmm. Separate from our rental programs, please take note that we also have renovation, bridge, and even new construction programs available to suit just about any niche situation out there that exists. Here's a quick snapshot of our, what I call our rate card or our rate sheet. Okay, this is going to give you the basics of the interest rates that we offer, the terms, LTVs, loan fees, etc. So the key takeaways are going to be that we'll go to 65% loan to value, which means you need a 35% down, very standard in the commercial financing space. Right, we do offer the 15 or 30-year amortizations, and we do have a couple of balloon programs, as you can see there on the left. We do have one qualifying criteria. We refer to it as a debt service coverage ratio, and that'd be a 1.3 number. It's a fancy way of saying, and I like to look at it of a perspective of a percentage of market rent. So we want to make sure that the property stands on its own, meaning whatever the market rents are, that your maximum or all-inclusive monthly payment, including principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, is no more than 75% of market rent. So for easy numbers, right, if we're talking about $10,000 a month in market rent, we don't want your payment to be more than $7,500 per month. That is literally the only qualifying criteria besides your down payment. We do have a bridge program available if you're really interest rate driven at 4.95%. That will include no financing for renovation, and that would be at a 50% LTV, but it is a rock bottom interest rate that's available for someone who's got the majority of the cash but needs to have some low leverage. As I mentioned, we do offer financing for the repair or upgrade that's going to be needed in these value add deals. And the asterisk just goes to show that for the right deal, we're willing to break guidelines. And one of the biggest guidelines is going to be pushing up that LTV to 70%, which is no better than a conforming loan could do. We spoke with Reed, and for a multifamily property, 3 or 4 units, you're going to need to be putting down 30% for that Fannie Mae product, so you can go private without all the red tape when you need to.
And this is that last statement. Those last 2 statements are very important because, like the 6-unit building we're talking about, performing well right now, but sometimes you've got a killer deal on a property, but with commercial financing, you can't get the financing because the net operating income is way too low. The rents are too low. The building's in too bad of a shape, but it's a great deal. That's what we have the opportunity to do here, is to still have that ability to acquire these properties, do the heavy lifting, and create some serious equity there.
All right, let's hear about that case study, Tom.
Okay. I feel like this is what everybody's sitting here waiting for. This is the exciting part about it. I'm very excited about this because this was an opportunity for me to earn my client and now very close friend a ton of equity in this property and to give him something that's literally going to turn into his retirement. He literally told me, this is what keeps me comfortable in life now, and knowing that I will always have this property. And when, even if everything goes south, I will always have at least $2,000 to $3,000 a month of positive cash flow, and something that's going to make him 6 figures once the loan is paid and due. So it's a cool property.
Definitely. So we're looking at here is the pro forma from our website, right? The properties on Cabrillo and Torrance, and this is the before pro forma. This is when your client bought the property. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
And he did finance it, I understand. He was able to get a conforming loan on this?
Exactly. So we did come in all cash, just to make it look like an all cash offer, and we got our deal accepted accordingly. And then we ended up financing after the fact, which is pretty interesting because even before renovation, it appraised for $300 more than what we paid for it. So it was a great purchase. So, talking about this purchase price of $1,650,000, right? Current rents, and now this is a triplex, which is three bedroom, 3-bath units, which is an amazing unit composition, especially in Torrance, because we knew that future values of those rents are sky high. But right now, one of the units is at $1,900, one is at $2,000. And then we pro forma the one front vacant 3-bedroom, 3-bath for a gross scheduled income of $76,800. Now, what that turns into for an NOI is $32,000, which eventually turns into a cap rate of 1.9%. Now, the reason why I'm accentuating the 1.9% is because if I went out of the market today and just had a paper that said, I'm selling a property for 1.9%, nobody's gonna buy it, because that's not really what we're looking for here in the cap rate. We're just expressing the cap rate to show the future valuation of it.
Yeah, it was just that your client was willing to do the value add.
Exactly, and we were able to kind of show him the numbers and show him all the experiences and how we're gonna use our property management and how we're gonna leverage everything effectively. So, that was a very interesting purchase. Now, this is really cool as well because one of the units was just recently finished, and I'm actually gonna be leasing it out in the next day or so, up to $39.50. So as one of the units was $1,900, it's now going to be $39.50 for this 3-bedroom, 3-bath unit. And as I was explaining earlier as well, it is a rental property. It doesn't have to be the nicest thing on the block. But we came in there, we put LVT everywhere, had the original cabinets painted, new countertops, sink, faucet, left all the original fixtures, changed doorknobs, and small stuff to really make it upscale, but without really breaking the bank on the price per unit. Our total renovation budget on this property was about $120,000, but when you spread that out between a nearly 6,800 square foot building, that's not that much. Whole exterior and interior renovation, we really shopped this out and did a great job on this.
All right, so you had the one vacant unit. Mm-hmm. The other 2 were occupied with holdover tenants at well under market value. So you started with the renovation on the vacant unit and getting that leased up.
Mm-hmm.
So now on the screen, we've got the after pro forma that's actually happening right now.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. And so tell me again, I think you mentioned that the repair, the upgrades was about 120. Is that 40,000 a unit?
About 40,000 a unit, 30 to 40 a unit, and then we did a little bit of roof work, a little bit of patch and paint on the outside, just to make the building look pretty to get that top of market rent, right? But what's great is when you look at the gross scheduled income afterwards for raising the rents for each of these properties, we're looking at $137,400 a year, taking our net operating income to $77,726. Lucky number there, 777, right? Taking our purchase cap rate, remember how we calculate our cap rate, we're looking at our NOI compared to our list price of 165. So if he's buying and holding this, he's essentially created for himself a 4.7 cap in the Southern California market, which is pretty unheard of. I mean, you'd be lucky, you'd be hard pressed to buy something at 4.5, maybe 4.25, never 4.7, right? And in actuality, this one will have an opportunity to put an ADU in there as well, which is going to really bump up our NOI as well. But that's after the fact. That's not equated into these numbers. But if we look at this mathematical equation, we get a future valuation at a 3.8 cap, which is very competitive for this market, of $2,045,000, giving us a net equity gain of about $247,000 in net equity gain. What's exciting about this was 4 months ago.
Yeah,
4 months ago that we closed on this property, whirlwinded it up, cleaned everything out, and just have this going. So it's he's very excited. Not only that, but he's got an insanely cash flow positive property, which is almost also unheard of to make $1,000, $2,000 a month on these properties right off the bat. And like I was talking about as well, his 10-year gain, if he looks at those rental increases with heavy vacancy, he's going to be just going higher and higher with these very desirable units. So.
Yeah, just want to kind of tie us all together here. So we showed an initial before pro forma at the actual purchase price of 165 and what the current market rents were, right? And then we're comparing that using the same numbers, the same 165, because he still owns it. It's going to be a rental property, right? And then by increasing the rents, right, without having to increase the expenses, he's increased the net operating income. And of course, the expenses increase a little bit. Of course, your management fees are going to go up because your rents are up and so on. But we're really looking at the same numbers. We're really just looking at a substantial increase in the rents. So that 4.7 cap rate is that 77 against the 165 price that he paid for the property, right? And then we're looking at like what the value would be, because as we were talking about earlier today, you think you could easily go to market at a 3.5 or a 3.8 cap rate like we're showing here. And if he was going to dispose of the property at this point, the value is easily 2.45 or north.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we're talking what realistically, if you came to me and said, hey, let's list it tomorrow, I'd probably take it down to a 3.5 cap and see if anybody bid at that, which probably put us at like 2.1, 2.2.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, that's people really like these performing properties, especially if you can say, hey, we had a vetted tenant from a professional property management company place. All you have to do is put your cash down and walk away. That's it. Investors love that.
Absolutely. And for some of those folks that are on the call, right, that are on 1031 exchanges like we talked about, if you're not into the heavy lifting and you just want to buy one of these assets, I mean, we kind of handle both sides of the story. So we're specifically talking about value add, which is Tom's, passion, as he's mentioned. But hey, we help all investors of all shapes and sizes, regardless of what their goals are.
Very much so. I mean, I've had investors before buy properties that are 1.5 or 2 cap, but just really top shelf properties that they don't have to do anything
to. Drum roll.
Raul, this is the question you were looking for earlier in the comment section here. This is a pocket listing 6-unit building that we have available in Huntington Harbor. Now, this is like we were talking about, how we're bird dogging and digging up these deals. Right? This is a seller who is going to be moving eventually, not too positive when, but he says, hey, if you've got a buyer, we'll make it happen, right? tricky thing is he's got other units as well. So if you're looking for this unit, he has a total of 15 units that we can put a whole big deal together. But I just wanted to case study this 6-unit building, right? So purchase price, I would estimate at about 2.15. I think that's a number that we could acquire this property for. Current rents are a little bit south of market rent, of course, because he's owned it for over 15 years. This is the literal example of what we were talking about earlier, where he self-manages. The property is in really nice shape. He lives less than 5 minutes away from where the building is. He's always checking on it. Newer plumbing, but it's just he hasn't raised the rents because, you know, this guy moved in here 10 years ago and he's a great tenant and, you know, not really paying attention to the net operating income, more so just, hey, it's free and clear. I'm going to get whatever I'm going to get. That's the way it is.
Yeah, it's the classic example of the landlord who self-manages and he's friends with the tenants. It's like, how do you raise the rent on your friends, right? Another reason why you need to use property management.
Exactly.
Now, I also wanted to point out as Tom's going through this is that this pro forma is based on a cash purchase,
Yes.
right? It doesn't change, you know, because in a cap rate, a net operating income analysis, it doesn't look to debt service or to whether you use a loan or not. So that doesn't change these metrics we're going to be talking about here on the right. But do know that this is going to be the same setup as how we looked at Cabrillo. This is just going to be using a cash purchase because there are a lot of cash buyers out there.
Yeah, exactly. So again, if you look at the purchase price and the net operating income, that takes us to an acquisition cap rate of 2.6%. Again, pointing this out because a 2.6% cap isn't too appealing if you're looking for a buy and hold asset. But what we're doing is value add. So the next slide here is going to be our after repair numbers. Now, again, I said the building is in great shape. We did a very conservative estimation of 160 grand for all of the units. Could be $10,000 a unit, could be $30,000 a unit. But again, from conversations with the seller, walking the building, checking it out, working through it, getting his list of repairs and things he's done over time, I estimate 160 to be high in that regard, right? But what that does is that would take you up to an aftermarket rent of 162,600 in gross scheduled, 88,000 in net operating income for a future cap rate of 4.1%, right? And in this market, having a 4.1%, I mean, look at, this is literally Huntington Harbor. You've got $4 million harbor houses. You've got the 2015 new construction home selling for 2.5 just on the other end of you, right? It's a very prestigious area where you're going to always have solid renters. You're always going to have great income, and it's going to be an appreciating asset, right? You've got it at a 4.1 cap. Now, if we use the same equation we were talking about earlier, and you appraise the property for a 3.5 cap, it future values it for $2,550,000. This, again, would be very conservative because I can provide a direct comp that sold last month of a 6-unit building with the same unit composition that was performing very well, sold for 2.670, right? So 2,550 is a conservative estimate for the future valuation of this property. So, you know, this is a deal that you can write an offer on today. This is something that we have in our back pocket. This is what we're talking about when we're bird dogging. We're finding deals. We know these buyers, we know these sellers, and we're putting this stuff together off market.
Yeah, I want to answer a question we're getting from the crowd specifically about green here is that does it have to be a cash offer? And the answer to that is no. I mean, at the end of the day, the seller is going to get the cash one way or the other, whether it's all from you or whether it's the down payment from you and the loan from the lender, right? So although we've pro forma'd this as a cash purchase, separate from how we pro forma'd the Cabrillo asset, which was a finance purchase, you can finance this if you want. Right? You can't get a conforming loan from it from Reed or any other conforming conventional lender. You're going to have to go commercial or private. But this is certainly an asset that we'd be willing to push the LTV to 70%. It's right in our backyard, right? I've lived in Southern California in this area for the last 20 years, and I know how desirable it is. And I know that rents are going nowhere but up. So these values that we see here, this is just today.
Mm-hmm. And like I was saying, there's other properties available as well. I've got about 20 units in my back pocket right now, 2 5s, a 4, and a 6. Schedule a consultation, we'll talk about it. They're at varying degrees of wanting to sell in different situations, and they're actually all in Huntington Harbor. So if you're looking for 15, 20 units within a 1 square block radius. This is my backyard. This is where I live. It's a beautiful neighborhood. And, it's funny, one of the deals literally fell into with the bird dog, and just walking down the street and recognizing one of the owners and saying, hey. And, that's
never hurts to say hey.
No, it's one of my favorite things to do in life.
All right, folks, we're going to address some regularly asked questions that we get periodically. We've answered a lot of them from the crowd, but we have a few. So, Tom, right? I already own multifamily. I self-manage. Can Marshall Reddick help?
Well, of course we can help. The number one thing, like we were talking about earlier, is you deserve a raise. What's your NOI? How can we increase the value of your property? If you're self-managing, I can all but assure you, you don't wake up and check the current leasing market for your 3-bedroom unit that just vacated, right? You're kind of just thinking about, well, I just leased it for $2,500 7 years ago. I should raise it to $2,800, when in actuality, your unit could be bringing in $3,800 a month, right? These are things that we know how to do. These are professional things that we help with. So I like to say this too, even though we do charge a management fee, people shy away from that. We can assure that almost always the NOI, the money coming into your pocket, is going to be higher, even with less than management fees, than most people who are self-managing their properties right now. That plus you have 0% headache. You can just ride off into the sunset and let us handle everything and just collect that check every month. So
yeah, I think a big takeaway here is that we're not scared of getting involved. It is a substantial amount of work to come into a property that's underperforming with under market rents or potentially problematic tenants. That is not something that is out of our wheelhouse. And some of the properties that we showed on this session earlier on came to us in that capacity, right? But we had the knowledge and the ability to undertake that, stabilize, raise rents after turning tenants, and managing the improvements and taking care of that asset, being the X factor for that landlord.
Something that's also very important as well to accentuate is we love real estate. We are passionate about real estate. We come in, we love talking deals. I mean, even when we're getting lunch, we're just shooting numbers back and forth, and we get jazzed about it. So property management is one of the lesser tasks in the real estate industry, rather than finding deals or private financing, doing all this stuff. But it's the most important part, right? Because if the mismanaged property, doesn't matter how good of a deal you got, because it'll turn into a terrible deal in the 2 to 5 years it takes for a property to fall apart. So we have passion for it. We love analyzing our clients' portfolios. We love looking at these new properties that are coming in, seeing how we can better serve our clients, or how we can make these deals as best as we can make them.
I haven't addressed them. I had a couple of clients on the call asking this question. I knew we were going to get to it. So yeah. I'm scared of rent control, right? I know that's something we talked about, my folks and then their property in Santa Monica. Mm-hmm. Is multifamily safe?
Multifamily is extremely safe. Now, California rent control did actually, as I mentioned earlier, get passed January 1st, 2020 for statewide rent control. However, it's not as daunting as a lot of people lead it up to be. Now, cities like San Francisco, Santa Monica, places where they're very pro-tenant, it's a little rough, right? But the statewide rent control isn't necessarily as bad as a lot of people make it up to be. It does limit how much you can raise your rents. It does limit the tenants' rights and everything like that. But I tell you what, it is something that we navigate effectively, regularly here at Marshall Reddick, because we do have those connections with those lawyers who we're speaking to who represent landlords' rights. We do have connections with the people in the industry and other teams that are going out there and handling these day by day. So we know how to walk that fine line that honestly somebody who wasn't a real estate professional would be a little troubled to press. So again, kind of tying into the previous question, somebody who's self-managing would be like, hey, I have no idea what to do. My tenants own the property now. And it's like, well, not so much. It's not as scary as a lot of people lead it to be. But it is definitely a fine line that you need to walk as a professional.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I think about when I think multifamily is you're generally going to get more turnover, which is awesome, right? Okay. When you're talking single family homes, like in, say, Santa Monica, that is something that literally the tenant might stay for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Yeah. You certainly could get that in the multifamily space, but we're generally talking about smaller units. You have folks that come and stay for a year or two and move. And in the multifamily space, that vacancy is sometimes a huge blessing, because then you're going to be able to go in, you're going to be able to improve the property, and you're going to bring it up to market rent. And I think that is a huge selling point from the multifamily space, because because it's all about those rents. If you can keep those high, your value is going to be high.
One vacancy in that Cabrillo property brought us an extra $2,000 a month, and that's substantial. It's pretty cool. So.
All right, contemplating a 1031 exchange. Can I exchange single family because it's one unit into multifamily, which is more than one unit?
Long form or short form? I mean, short answer is yes. Maria, if you're in the audience tonight, I know we just had a conversation about this a little bit earlier. You own a single family property and you're looking to move into multifamily. As long as you are 1031 exchanging an income property for an income property, it's still considered like kind. So if you have an investment single family home and you want to buy a 4-unit building, you can sell that free and clear property, move all of your equity into a multifamily property, and still not have to pay capital gains taxes on it. That even translates to if you have 3 single family investments, 3 single family investments and 2 condos. As long as they're income property, you can 1031 exchange those properties into one or multiple multifamily properties, regardless of the unit size.
Yeah, and I think navigating a 1031 exchange is one of the uniquenesses of what Marshall Reddick offers in terms of value, right? Those are one of those like necessary service providers that you want quick and easy access to. So we certainly have one of the exchange providers that we work with. We've got an excellent relationship with. She handles all of our client 1031 exchange, and she's available for those nuanced questions about your specific situation and what you're looking to do. Can you do it? How do you do it? And so on, right? So let's put it to work.
That's again why we have great connections, because I always love giving Dino a call with those obscure questions that we always seem to run across here at Marshall Reddick, because we're doing so many transactions in between states and areas and properties and different investments, from land to this to that. And I'll kind of call her and she always picks up, and I'll just say, hey, can you sell a pink house in exchange for an orange one 47 states away, but not this and that? And she'll give me a full explanation of, you know, how and why and what you can do. So it pays to have connections like that.
Yeah, Dino's great. Okay, wrapping it up, folks. Marshall Reddick and private financing, rate buy downs are available. I'm not necessarily sure that they're always advantageous, but if this is definitely a long-term outlook from you and you want to pay a little bit more upfront, you can definitely buy down the interest rate on one of our fixed interest rate programs. So I'd be happy to go over those numbers specifically one-on-one with you if that's something of interest. Oh, I'm interested in the Huntington Harbor property, 6 unit. What's the next step?
The next step would be, of course, contacting myself. Coming in, if you're here locally, come on into the office. We've got a beautiful office. We've got we just expanded even still. The new meeting room still smells like new office. It's a pretty nice area. Let me get you a cup of coffee. We'll talk about the different options. And we do have much more in-depth calculators than just kind of what you're seeing on the screen. So we can explain the current numbers, the future valuations, year over year, equity gains, and everything along that sort. So the next step is to come on in, give me a call, shoot me an email, schedule a time to meet up, and we will talk about this investment opportunity and the other ones that we have here as well.
Awesome, Tom. Thanks for the time tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Same here, Pat, always.
Good night.
Good night.